Hi guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have another installment of This Is Not a Top 10. And we're going to feature my favorite note in perfumery, which is leather, hence the leather jacket. This is kind of how I feel whenever I wear some of these leather fragrances. It is my favorite note, I think, in perfumery. I think I can say that with confidence. As much as I love the art of perfumery, I think it's easy for me to say that, leather fragrances are my favorite type, and that's why I can't do top 10. I'm showing you guys some of my favorite fragrances as far as the leather side of things go, but I've also left a lot out. I didn't include fragrances like Patu Pour Homme, which has a leather note. Some of these you'll notice are straight leather fragrances with very little complementing notes. Some of them are fragrances where leather complements the rest of the composition. But first, I want to show something I bought at the request of Rich Mitch. He recommended this. This is Mona de Orio's Cuir. And I have never smelled this before. It actually just came in today. I didn't even think that I should have held off and did an unboxing for you guys, but whatever. I'll give you guys a quick first impression. Nice sprayer. Let's see what Cuir is like. Oh. Wow, that is astringent. I'm going to let this settle down. I think I'll like it. It has a little bit of a Band-Aid quality to it first out of the atomizer, but it quickly dissipates. I don't know any of the notes, but I like that. That is, I think that will be a winner, but it can't be in a list of my top leathers because I just got it. So that's that. Let's start with my scent of the day, which is Fendi Uomo. And as you can see, look at this bottle. Look at how 80s it is with the marble. Looks like a marble slab here. And it's big, it just towers over other bottles. Just look at a regular bottle next to it. And this is probably my favorite Italian leather. I'll just give myself a spritz since it's my scent of the day. Italians do leather a little bit different than the French normally. Their fragrances are lighter. There's a lot more citruses. This opens up like your grandmother's cabinet smells, spice cabinet smells. But then what I like so much about it is it never gets too much on the nose, even though it's a leather and it's a heavy leather fragrance. This is from the 80s. Fendi Uomo came out in 1988. And so even though it's an 80s fragrance, since it's done in the Italian style, I really feel like you could wear this Oh, it's so good. I love this fragrance. This is my favorite Italian leather. Speaking of, since I like vintage stuff and I've shown you guys different formulations before. Let me just fix this so you can see me a little bit better. Let me show you the formulation that I have. I have the SPA Firenze formula. There's also Bethco. There's a bunch of different formulas of this. I can't speak for anyone except for this. I hear the Bethco one is also quite good. They do good reformulations, but I don't know. I've never smelled it. This is so good. If you like this fragrance, if you have any familiarity with this fragrance, the next fragrance I'm going to show you is almost like a sister fragrance to it. It's Moschino Pour Homme. Or Moschino. I have no clue how to pronounce this. This is also an Italian house, I believe. And this fragrance is also discontinued, just like the first one that I'm showing you. Beautiful artwork on the front, though, with the heart and the spade and the writing. And the difference between the two, this came out 2 years later, is that the amber note is amped up here. And so it also feels a little bit harsher in the first 30 minutes, give or take. they almost wind up in a very similar spot, but I love the way that Fendi Uomo wears more. This is classier. There's an iris note in this, which I don't think is in the Moschino. No, there is no iris note listed. So the iris adds this beautiful roundness to it, this powderiness. So even though it's ultra masculine, I love that iris note. It's beautiful. It is an absolutely beautiful composition. And leather being my favorite note, is this. These are easy sells to me. So good fragrance, discontinued. Don't pay crazy money for this. But if you have to have one, I would say go with the Fendi. Okay, next is a fragrance I don't have very much experience with. I've only worn it once, but I love it. I decanted some into another bottle. It's called Davidoff by Davidoff for men. This came out in 1984, I believe. Yes, 1984. And this leather is basically created by using that castoreum oak moss accord, which I just love so much. This is compared to some of my favorite fragrances of all time. It's compared to stuff like Jules by Dior, which is coming up later. And so the leather note in this is used very eloquently because it's mixed with some green notes like Artemisia. And you can see the color of the juice is green. You wouldn't think this is a leather fragrance, but the castoreum, the way that it's used, castoreum gives off a very leathery feel. I love the way that 80s fragrances used to, let me close this for you guys, used to give off this, leathery, the way that they used the castoreum in combination with the oak moss was just right up my alley, right into my driveway. I love it. Okay, next is a Eldo fragrance called Rien, Etat Libre d'Orange. And Rien is created by Antoine Lee, which is going to be Eugene's perfumer. Very excited to get my nose on his fragrances. And this is also a leather with iris, but with an incense note and aldehydes in the top amped up, and cumin. Beautiful labdanum. This has everything. Styrax, patchouli, oak moss. There's a rose note in this as well. Oh, it's so good. And I have a modern formulation, by the way. I've got the most recent stuff with the name on the cap and the shiny cap compared to the vintage formula, which had no name on the cap. This is the current. This is the vintage, and you see how it's a different color. I've got the current version of Rien. I would love to smell, a older bottle and see if there's a difference. But if you like powerhouse scents, check out Rien. I'm going to try to go a little bit fast because I do have a lot. I didn't want to leave too many out. I mentioned I left some out that I wish I would have included, but I can't include everything. It's a big pain to get all this stuff out of my collection, but I do want to showcase this. So next is JSwiss Un Homme, which is, I believe, I am man in French. And this is an interesting take on leather. It's also done by Antoine Lee, and as you can see, this is the vintage version, because this is a citrusy leather, and this is definitely something I would wear in summer. It's almost like a more refined, brought into the modern era take on Bel Ami, which is my favorite leather fragrance of all time, maybe my favorite fragrance of all time. This has a little bit of underlying smokiness like Rien does, but it's much more toned down. The citruses are super amped up. Fragrantica says citrus is the #1 note, main accords, and it would be hard to argue with that. It is a citrus fragrance, but if you like leathers but want something bright, optimistic, JSwiss Un Homme is a very interesting take from Antoine Lee. I know Antoine Lee talks a lot about Bel Ami. I can see the inspiration, absolutely could see the inspiration. They are two peas in a pod. I like Bel Ami much more. I love my vintage stuff. But this is very good for summer if you just can't, you can't wear Bel Ami in the heat. And then the last Eldo fragrance in my favorite leathers or top leather lists is Tom of Finland. And this is an interesting fragrance because it is a very smart use of safraline. So it's almost like a suede note instead of a leather. There's iris here again, which I love. Apparently I love iris mixed with that, leather feel. But it's a little bit green because it has pine and cypress and galbanum, 3 very green notes. But then it has this birch tar, which adds the smokiness to the saffron. Almost smells like a Middle Eastern fragrance a bit, but look at the color of the juice. Go look at a newer bottle. This is an older bottle again. Look at the cap. Go look at a newer bottle. The juice is clear. Look at the color of this vintage bottle. The juice is just red as can be. I love it. I'm so glad to have this because leather is one of my favorite notes. And there's ambergris in this too. Real ambergris apparently. Fantastic stuff. Okay, next is a fragrance that is getting a lot of hype in the fragrance community lately. All of a sudden, it's a bro fragrance. All of a sudden, it didn't used to be, but it's Dior Homme Parfum, and this is the vintage 75 ml. They now make it in 100 ml bottle, not 75. I don't know if it's changed, but this is the leather amped up from Dior Homme and Dior Homme Intense. Along with this gorgeous iris, which again, I said I love, and it shows here. There is an animalic side to this fragrance. It was created by Francois Demachy, probably one of the best things he did in 2014. He created this. There's a note of ambrette in the base, which is another note that I love, and apparently there's oud. Probably synthetic oud, but who knows? And it's so good. If you want to show everyone what fantastic style and class you have, put this fragrance on. It's a banger. And most parfums apparently sit closer to the skin. They don't project as much. This one really projects big time. So, watch the sprays. Okay. Next is a fragrance that came out in 1980, which is one of the best years in perfumery. It was put out again by the House of Dior, and this is Jules, or I think as you're supposed to say, Jules. It is definitely an 80s baby. This is a vintage bottle. They reformulated it into the modern square bottle with a cap in 2016, I think, which I think is very brave of them to do. It was a limited release, but still, who cares? This is green touches like Artemisia, basil with that old school carnation in the leather and fur. Again, the fur note is a green note that mixes with the oak moss, and the leather is so good. This is something that you could easily wear 3 months out of the year, minus summer. I mean, it's old school. It is. If you wear this, you're gonna feel old school. But you know what? I love these type of fragrances. They're my favorite. Like wearing Fendi Uomo today. I just smell the fragrance and I just almost melt every time. Like that's what perfumery should be. If you've never smelled Jules, get your nose on this. A vintage bottle if you can procure it. All right, next, one of the greatest leather fragrances of all time. I think when you see it, you will agree it has to be put in and as one of the greatest leather fragrances of all time. It was created by Francois Coty in the 1920s, and it's Knize Ten. This is the regular Eau de Toilette. There's also one that I have a decant of. I didn't grab it, though. It's called Knize Ten Golden Edition, which tones down some of the... it's a little easier to wear, a little easier to swallow. It's not as in your face. It's not as... I get a ton of this violet ionone note, if you will. It is very vintage feeling. It feels like it comes out of the 1920s. This is a modern bottle, by the way. I wish I could compare the vintage where the writing is all inside, inside of the circle there. But just as far as leather fragrances go, if you're a leather lover, you have to smell this. You have to get your nose on this. You can buy a bottle from Lucky Scent. I think that's where I got mine. It's going to be the modern stuff, but to my nose, it's still very well done. It just doesn't last forever. Okay. Next is going to be a fragrance that is a leather that's a complementary fragrance to the rest of this perfume. It's not the main note, but it's called Wall Street by Viktor. And this is my original splash. This is the backup that I got from Anuj for free. Thank you, Anuj. Well, not for free, obviously. I placed a large order and this came with it. But Wall Street is this. It's interesting because look at the bottle. Does that not remind you of Gordon Gekko? I mean, look at the sticker on the front of the bottle. And the back has this engraving of the V with the 80%, but with the degree circle, not percentage sign, which shows you how old this bottle is. They write it differently. Anyways, this is just, you know, it smells like the 80s to me. It smells like a man in a office filled with, you know, like a nice wooden desk. There's some green plants on the desk, you know, that are taken care of by his secretary because that's what men had back then. You know, it's coniferous, it's green, there's pine in this, there's artemisia, a lot of green notes again, but then there's that leather in the base that just sets everything off. And this has not been bid up. Again, I got this partial for free. This, I think I paid $45 for or something. So it's not a fragrance that people are asking crazy money for on the vintage side. So if you want to kind of get into vintage fragrances, you don't want to spend $1,000 on Patou pour Homme. Oh, it's so good. I just can't believe that you can find stuff like this still for $40. You know, don't go buy Dior Homme 2020. Buy this. Okay. Next is a Ralph Lauren, and it's a fragrance called Safari for Men. This is a Cosmere version. I've never smelled the new stuff. I have no interest in smelling the new stuff, but this is a Cosmere version. And this is another one where there's a lot of stuff going on around it. There's lavender in this, which you definitely get. There's aldehydes in the top and artemisia, neroli and lemon and bergamot, all this other stuff. There's a note of tarragon, which I love. I love the note of tarragon in fragrances. But then the leather in the base kind of holds everything together, if you will. So Ralph Lauren, Safari for Men. Again, leather as a complementary note, but very, very well done. And then the other Polo with leather as a complementary note is Polo Green. And this is a tester bottle. This is a vintage Warner version, which is before Cosmere purchased the rights from Warner to distribute Polo fragrances. This is even older than a Cosmere bottle, and it is just lovely. It's so green. The pine note in this, the pine mixed with the leather, mixed with the tobacco in this. This is what a man should smell like. There's no other way to say it. I mean, this is what men used to smell like in the good old days. And there's a coriander note, which I love the note of coriander in perfumery. The oak moss in this, you can just smell this, you know, this pillowy oak moss that just, you know, it just rests on that oak moss base. And then, of course, the leather. Just gorgeous. I love this stuff. You know, when I wear these type of fragrances, it puts me in such a different mood. You know, when I try to wear something new that I don't really like, I'm just kind of, you know, it doesn't put me in the same mood. I feel like I'm wearing this leather jacket right now when I wear stuff like this. Like you're just, you know, you're just suited up, booted up, you know, you have all the confidence in the world. You're the best smelling guy out there. These kind of fragrances really do it for me. Okay, next is a hidden gem. I thought about holding off until the end or doing a separate video on this, but whatever. It's a leather fragrance. It's going in this video. Maybe I'll do a separate video about it. I will pound the table on this fragrance until the cows come home. No one's talking about this fragrance. It's called Rochas Macassar. And this is the Incredible Hulk, someone wrote on Fragrantica, in a bottle, but with leather. That's the best way to describe it. It is green as green could be. This is a reformulated bottle, by the way. You can see the notes on the side. I think it was a tester. So you can see the notes on the side there. You can probably pause that and try to read it. But it basically is green notes and leather. I mean, that's literally the only way you can describe this. It's pine, artemisia, patchouli, heavy oak moss and leather and amber. This fragrance is so good, and it is a beast. And this is the reformulated one. The regular bottle was this kind of very squatty bottle with this long horizontal wooden cap. I can't find that for the life of me. Even if I wanted to pay 500 bucks for it, no one's selling them. So I got what I could, and I'm glad I can, because now I'm glad I got what I did when I did, because now, you know, a couple years later, people are selling these for 4 times what I paid for it a few years ago on eBay. But Macassar, if you're into vintage masculines and you think you've smelled it all, you have to have this in your collection. It is the Incredible Hulk with leather. Okay, next is a modern leather fragrance that I love. I wish I could find the EDP to kind of complete the collection, because I love that kind of stuff. I only have the EDT, but I do have the big bottle, which I'm very happy to have. And that is Midnight in Paris by Van Cleef and Arpels. The most beautiful bottle you could imagine. I can't believe they didn't take this line and run with it. Why didn't they do a midnight in London, midnight in New York, midnight in Texas, for God's sakes? I'll be the creative director on Midnight in Texas, guys. Contact me. They could do the star patterns differently in every place on the bottle. They just squandered this opportunity. But this is basically, this is compared to, by the way, Black, which Annick Menardo created for Bulgari. And there is a similarity. I didn't grab that fragrance. I could have, but I grabbed this instead because I like this more. This is an amber and vanilla and modern fragrance, where leather complements all that. But it's just done so well. There's this tea note in here. This Olivier Polge, by the way, created this with Domitel Michelin Bertier, which I have no idea who she is. I've never heard of her before in my life. But if you want like a modern leather that's benzoin-y, warm, there's this almond tonka base with styrax, but then the leather is just, it's so good. I prefer this to Bulgari Black for sure. But Bulgari Black is another, if you like that burnt leather type smell, you could go for that one as well. But highly recommend this. Wish I could find the EDP, but very glad to have a 4.2 ounce of the EDT. And then we are on to Van Cleef and Arpels Pour Homme, which is, you know, there are some fragrances that use the castoreum note. There's more coming because, again, I have to showcase these fragrances. They're my favorite leather fragrances of all time. But they use the castoreum note in such a way that it's just done to perfection to create that leather accord. And this is one of them. This Van Cleef & Arpels Pour Homme is one of them. One of the best uses of castoreum and oak moss and all the beautiful spicy notes. There's clove in this. You know, and again, there's orris root in this again. And that's a trend all of a sudden I kind of picked up on today while I was talking with Yura. And he mentioned, you know, that there's orris even in Bel Ami, my favorite leather fragrance of all time. So it's kind of something I picked up while thinking about doing this video. But this adds the note of rose to it. There's this beautiful masculine rose in this, kind of like Aramis 900. hidden secret is I like this more than Aramis 900. I like Aramis 900, don't get me wrong, but I like this more. It's Van Cleef and Arpels Pour Homme. And again, speaking of not grabbing fragrances, I did not grab the original Aramis by Aramis, I don't think. But there's just so many, you can't grab them all. But that's one. If you're on a leather hunt and you haven't smelled the original version of Aramis by Aramis, it's one of the best. Okay, next is Azuree by Estee Lauder. This is a leather chiffre. It's mossy. It smells like the forest floor, but it has this, oh God, this is so good. This is one of the, I don't know if there's a better fragrance that you can pay money for to buy than this. I mean, if you don't own this in your collection, I have the, what they call the Pure Fragrance Spray. And if you just had $200 to spend and you wanted to get one of the best fragrances out there for your dollar, I think this is it. And this is so good and so complex. It's created by Bernard Chant, I'm sorry. Same guy that created Aramis by Aramis. This was launched in 1969. Aramis by Aramis was launched in 1966 for men. And, you know, they resemble each other. This was supposed to be a women's release. I cannot believe this is a women's release. I still refuse. My brain just can't wrap my head around the fact that this is what women wore. I wish women would wear stuff like this today. It is so good. The oak moss is turned up to 11. I mean, it is a oak moss leather bomb. Gorgeous. Okay, next, we're going to go to another perfectly executed piece of perfumery by Ron Winograd, who created Karl Lagerfeld Classic and another fragrance that I absolutely love. He created Furio by Jacques Bogart, which I will showcase in my Bogart family portrait. If you like fragrances like Koros, you have to get your nose on Furio. Okay, so this next one is Leonard Parfums. I only have these two 25 ml bottles. I wish I had a bigger bottle, but you know, it is what it is. But this is another just perfect use of the castoreum nose. Oh God, so good. It's very similar to Antaeus in the way that it uses the castoreum note to create that leather accord, but it doesn't have Chanel's finesse, so to speak. This was also launched a year before Antaeus, so, you know, go figure. And Antaeus is one of my favorite fragrances of all time, but this has that carnation note, which was normal in the 80s. I was just looking. This also has iris. I can't believe it. I can't believe I never noticed that connection. If I ever create a fragrance, I'm definitely doing a leather iris creation because I obviously love them. But this has this dirtiness of older castoreum from the old days. You know, Chris from Scentland said this smells like a well-traveled man, a man that's been around, you know, knows what he likes, knows who he is. This is what I love wearing stuff like this. You know, sometimes I wish I would just wear all the stuff that I really love wearing and forget about everything else, but I can't because I have to keep kind of trying stuff and, you know, seeing what else is out there and stuff like that. But that is an all-time love. Okay, next is going to be another women's targeted fragrance, and this is Bandit. This is the vintage EDT. And by Robert Piguet, by the way. And this is this green, mossy. It's so sharp. The leather note in this is like nothing you've ever smelled. Nothing. Let me see where Mona Diorio's Cuir is at. Very good. It's oily. I like that oily feel. I like that a lot. That's a winner. Thanks, Duck. Okay, Bandit by Robert Piguet. This came out in 1944. Again, a women's release, unbelievably. And it's a chiffre, but it's a mossy chiffre. It's a leather chiffre, just like Azuree. I prefer Azuree over this, but this is like smelling an artifact from World War II. I mean, it's literally like It's literally like you just took out an artifact of perfumery from another time, and you get to smell it. It's unbelievable. If you're a perfume lover, you have to have this. And then if this is just too hard for you, if you like this and you want to wear it, but it's too hard for you to wear, I would recommend Cabochard by Parfums Gres. And this is also woody and aromatic, but there's this tobacco note. There's a little bit more sweetness here. There's this tobacco note that kind of comes in and rounds everything out. And Oris, yeah, this is a little bit easier to wear, but they both have the same kind of scent profile. They will both shock you. Look at the bottle, by the way. Beautiful. This is back when Parfums Gres was owned by no one. They were the distributor. And, you know, that's one thing I think we miss with modern formulations. I'll do another, you know, conglomerate house overview one day with LVMH. They have to be the next one. I've already done L'Oreal and Estee Lauder just to show the control they have over all these brands. All these brands were competing with each other. You know, Rochas had their own distributors. Parfums Gres have their own distributors. Estee Lauder did, you know, or Ralph Lauren, or, you know, Eldo, whoever it is, you know, they had, I guess that's a bad example because that's a new house, but they had their own distributors and oils, and, you know, they competed with each other. They created them in their own factory, not L'Oreal's factory or LVMH's, or, you know, everything wasn't aggregated together. So you got different smells, you got different takes. Now everything is the same. That's why I don't like it. I like older stuff. Okay, anyways, on to a newer formula after saying I hate new stuff. This is Demachy's, well, Christian Dior's, but created by Francois Demachy. This is Cuir Canage. This smells like the inside of a woman's purse. It's again, iris and leather. But this amps up some of the white florals. There's some smoky facets. Duck did a review on this, or talked about it, I should say, in one of his rotation videos recently, where he said this is done with big, broad strokes. I kind of see what he's saying. It's not as nuanced as some of like Olivier Polge's work or Jacques Pol, stuff like that. You know, it's not fine brush strokes, it's big brush strokes, but it's done very well. I enjoy this. I would totally get a full bottle of this if I didn't have two 10 ml decants. Okay, next we are going to look at a vintage fragrance that I love, and I missed out actually on getting a full bottle. Duck beat me to it by a day. I introduced him to Moudessir, and he went and got this immediately, which was a good move because I was going to buy the big bottle. So I got a little 10 ml mini, and I love this fragrance. I absolutely love it because it does the same thing as Leonard Parfums does. It uses castoreum and smoke to kind of build this leather accord. It's a fragrance from Balenciaga called Portos. And you can see it's an eau de cologne concentration. This came out in 1980. Again, just a beautiful year for perfumery. And, oh, it's so good. I bet you could put this on and go stand in a rainstorm and then come back in and you would just reek of Portos. It is galbanum, artemisia, coriander, cumin in the top, with bergamot, of course. Carnation, patchouli, geranium, vetiver, cedar, jasmine in the mid, and then carnation or castoreum, leather, myrrh, oak moss, incense, French labdanum, musk in the base. And that myrrh with castoreum and leather and incense in the base is just perfect. This is perfection for a men's fragrance. This is I can't believe more people don't talk about this who like vintage masculines. Too bad it's so hard to find. I wish I could find a big bottle. And next, I just want to show you one I grabbed real quick out of the collection. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites, but if these are just too old school for you or too harsh or whatever it is, check out this CH Men, CH for Men. Now, I have a vintage bottle, so this has this tassel here. The new ones have CH Men here, and you can see it's got this leather, you know, feel to the cover. And this is basically sugar. It's got this burnt sugar and leather feel to it, which if you like sweet fragrances, which I don't, But this is one that I could stand. If you want a modern leather, this might be one to kind of check out. Okay, next is another Dior. And this time it's going to be Leather Oud. And I actually, ooh, look at my face there. I actually do have a reformulated bottle, and I actually like it. I hear the old stuff's better though. And I've never really gotten a chance to compare the two, so I couldn't speak to that. I couldn't speak to that fact, whether it's true or not. You know, with the C and the D not connecting themselves, where they're completely separate. Duck has shown that. Rich Mitch has shown that on his videos a couple times. So this is a newer bottle. And it's this animalic smoky oud with leather, basically, is what it is. But it has this strange sand note in the base that they added to the reformulation in 2018 that the old one didn't have. But it lasts forever still. I sprayed this on a blotter once, and it was there for a week and a half. It does have this synthetic amber wood. Maybe the old stuff didn't have that as much. Maybe the castoreum was amped up a little bit more. Or the civet. I don't know what they use in the old stuff, but I love this. I'm glad to have it. If you cannot pay money for this, if you don't want to pay the big money that they're asking for leather oud, this is 125 ml tester or something I bought. I don't remember, but if you don't want to pay the big money for this, you can buy Jacques Bogart One Man Show Oud Edition. I actually had a subscriber write me and say he bought that recently based on watching one of my videos, and he loves it. Obviously, it's synthetic for $15 for 100 ml or whatever it is, but they just go, oh, you want some oud? Here you go. Here's the same synthetic oud crap everyone else is using, and they just give it to you. And Thomas from Early Greeks said that, and he nailed it. That's exactly what they do. It's perfect. So Leather Oud is a great fragrance, but if you can't find it, check out One Man Show Oud Edition. It's a little rougher, but I think it gets I think it'll get you there. Okay, next is my favorite Tower fragrance. This is one me and Persolays agree with. He said his favorite fragrance is Lone Star Memories. And I agree with him. I like this better than L'air du Désert Marocain. If I want a spicy amber like L'air du Désert Marocain, I'd rather wear Ambre Sultan from Serge Lutens. But Lone Star Memories was his third fragrance to be put out. And what I really like about it is the journey that this takes you on. So I wrote a Fragrantica review on this, actually, and I said it smells like a cowboy who sits down, he decides he wants to have some coffee, he takes off his leather, gun belt holders that his father gave him from 30 years ago, and it's worn leather, and he takes off the saddle from the horse, and it's worn leather, and he sits down, makes some coffee, and forgets about it. The coffee burns. Then he wakes up and goes, oh, wow, I burned the coffee. Let me clean this out. And I decided I don't want coffee anymore, I want tea. And that geranium gives this clean type accord. So it starts out, with this leather, labdanum, and heavy myrrh. This is beautiful myrrh note in this. And carrot seeds, which makes it a little bit unique. And then when the cowboy changes his mind, so to speak, and decides he does not want to have coffee after all, and he washes out the, coffee pot, you kind of get this metal type of core. Well, I wouldn't say metal, but you get this rustic feel in this fragrance. Maybe it's the clary sage, I don't know. But the geranium comes and he takes a bath with geranium soap is what Persolays says. And he is very spot on. That's exactly what this feels like. Fantastic fragrance, my favorite from Tower, Lone Star Memories. And then I'm going to show a niche fragrance that's very expensive. I bought a refill. It looks like a plastic bottle, but it's not. It's a Dior Homme. As you can see, it's not plastic. It's just how the old Dior refills used to be. And I just decanted this. And I, saved more than half price versus what Dior is selling their new stuff for. And this is an older one, so I can't speak on reformulation. But this is very similar This is very similar to this. Knize Ten and Dior Homme are brothers. I prefer this, believe it or not, but I'm curious if I smelled the vintage if I would actually like this more. But in these two, the modern Knize Ten or this Dior Homme, I actually really like this. It's really, it's really oily feeling, but there's a lot else going on. It's smoky. It smells almost like you're mixing a leather accord with like this strange oil note that fell onto the concrete, And there's also a note of lavender in here. So Xerjoff sells this for like $500. It's ridiculous. Not this one, but a full bottle with the presentation. Don't pay $500 for this fragrance. It's not worth it. But if you can find a partial and you like, leather fragrances, it's definitely one to wear. I enjoy wearing this fragrance. Okay. Next is going to be one of the most popular leather fragrances of all time. And it is Tuscan Leather. I don't know the formulation on this, or I don't know if it matters or what, but this is a beast. And it set off this trend. It's this raspberry with leather and this animalic note. It smells like almost you're sitting in a bar wearing a jacket like this, smoking a cigarette, and you put the cigarette out. There's this, it almost smells like suede mixed with leather. And then there's this olibanum smokiness. It's such a good fragrance, to be honest. I mean, they hit a home run with this. This is the stuff Tom Ford used to put out in the old days. And I hope he gets back to doing that. Next is another all-time great leather fragrance with a lot else going on. But I'll show you my vintage bottle. This is a vintage bottle of Fahrenheit. One of the best masculines. This is leather with violet leaves. The violet leaves give off this ozonic feel. There's chamomile. There's some interesting notes in this, like chamomile, hawthorn. You don't see that every day. There is a floral heart that's also unique. There's honeysuckle, carnation, jasmine, lily of the valley. But then that leather, especially in the vintage, the leather and the gasoline note in the top when you spray this is so pronounced. I love it. You go to the petrol station, you spill gasoline on your hand, and bam. Very close to the opening of Fahrenheit. And then I'm going to show you a modern leather, which is a take on my favorite fragrance of all time, Bel Ami. That's coming up. This is Rochas Fetish Parfum. It definitely is a take on Bel Ami. I've said it before. Roja takes classic fragrances and he Rojas them up. There's really no other way to say it. His perfumers, they add notes like fig. There's no note of fig in Bel Ami. Violet. He loves the note of violet. Violet is like his thing. Look at his color. He's always surrounded by violets, by violet colors, purples. And then he adds ambergris and castoreum and LME and other, cardamom. He does other things to it. But honestly, I prefer the original of this one. I just do. I said I prefer Diaghilev over Mitsuko. I will give him his due where it's due. But this is not worth $500 for 50 ml. Am I glad to have it? Yes. Do I wear it often? No. Do I crave to wear it? No, not very often. But, it's a take. There's another take on Bel Ami I'll show you later that I like more. Okay. Next, we're going to get to Guerlain, the house that Roja so desperately wanted to be associated with. He worked for them for 30 or 40 years or whatever it is, but as head of marketing or something. One of the Sylvain Delacourt said that he was a makeup guy. He wasn't even a perfumer. But anyways, that's for another story. So the house is Guerlain, and the fragrance is Darby. This is a vintage bottle, obviously. They don't sell this bottle any longer. And in fact, even the reformulated one with the square wood around the bottle is now discontinued. So the prices on Darby are getting absolutely insane. But this is a masculine chiffre. And it's so good. You would think by looking at the notes, this is a fragrance that you have to wear in winter. It has leather and oak moss, and it came out in the 80s. It came out in 1985. 95, best year I was born. But it has other things that you know, brighten it up somehow. It has this note of nutmeg flower. Anyways, I say all that to say that the leather in this is not in your face. It's complementary. Sometimes you even have to search it out. It won't just come to you. You have to look for it when you wear this fragrance. And you know, it's a 365-day fragrance for me. I mean, if you want to smell, I've said this before, but if you go to a, you know, boardroom and you're going to meet with the president, the vice presidents, the CEOs, the you know, CFOs, all the important people on the board of directors, this is what I would wear, hands down. This is it. This is a power fragrance. And then the other leather, which again, it's kind of hidden. It comes out more in the vintage. I have the vintage, but I'm just going to show you the modern formulation. It's Habit Rouge. This came out in 1965. Jean-Paul Guerlain put this out. Apparently this is the masculine take on Shalimar, but there is this lovely leather. The red on this is supposed to be the red leather hunting jackets that they would give out to master hunters in England. I don't hunt, so I can't really speak to that, but that's apparently the story. And there is a beautiful leather that will come to you in the dry down of this fragrance if you let it and if you look for it. There's a leather in Shalimar. No one talks about Shalimar being a leather fragrance, but there it is. And then I'm going to talk about a leather fragrance no one talks about, but if you like bright leather fragrances, like I said, my scent of the day is Brightened Up. It's an Italian take. Italians brighten everything up. Well, this is a niche house, and this fragrance is a very bright leather fragrance to me. Very intelligently done. Yeah, it's very unique. It's from the house of Lubin, and it's Upper 10 by Lubin. And Upper 10, apparently, I'm not 100% sure on the story, but apparently it is supposed to be a take on the upper 10,000 people that founded America, the upper crust of the people that founded America, or the upper 10 colonies, if you will, that founded America and their ideas and stuff like that. It is very fresh. This is another one I think I would wear in summer, even though it's beast mode. If you watch Chris from Scentland's review on this, you will see he mentions like an orange note, and then he later on says, actually, I think it's peach, like in Mitsuko. Peach is credited as a note on Fragrantica, and it does have that feel. It kind of flows through the leather and sandalwood and cedar and musk and amber. Gorgeous, gorgeous fragrance. Even though it's beast mode, it's never really too pushy or in your face. Very intelligently done for a modern leather. Most modern leathers I don't like. I like the older stuff, as you can tell, but very good if you want a modern take. Okay, next is one of my favorite fragrances of all time, and it is Chanel Antaeus. Again, this is masterpiece stuff. I put this right up. I put Leonard Parfums with this because they both use that castoreum note to build the leather accord properly. And I don't know if got in the way or what. This is Jacques Paul's, but there's this myrrh and clary sage and coriander when you spray. And then there's this thyme and rose. The rose just gives this Chanel just, you know, posh. You can't get any more posh than Chanel. You know, if you wanted to go to a party and show off your class, you know, you can't get much better than this. I mean, Chanel Antaeus, especially in the vintage formula, where the top is silver, the EDT is written above Chanel. These older 80s bottles are just, this is just a titan in men's perfumery. A colossus, if you will. Okay, next is a Creed, and this came out in 1781. I'm just kidding. That's what Fragrantica says, but don't believe that BS. I have no clue who created this, by the way. The perfumers on Fragrantica, I just noticed it credits James Henry Creed, first generation from the 1700s, as the perfumer on this. But But I'm sorry, I didn't even tell you what this is. Royal English Leather by Creed. So this did not come out in 1781. Do not believe that BS. This was probably created in the 60s or 70s. I wish I knew who made it. I wish I did. Pierre Bourdon make this? You know, one interesting thing about Creeds is that they used to have this gray cap, which I don't have the cap, but it used to be a gray cap that went with all the EDTs. And those gray cap versions were fantastic. There was Acer Aluminum. There were a couple others, Royal Scottish Lavender, that were very good gray caps. There was Orange Spice. This is also a bright leather. I mentioned Upper 10 is a brightish type leather. You can wear it in more situations than some of these darker ones. You know, Creed just does, they do these very sparkly is a good word for it, that Creed sparkle. Creed used to use great ingredients. Actually, Pierre Bourdon talked about that in his article, or in his interview that he gave. It's a couple hours. You can probably find it on YouTube. But he says that, you know, Olivier Creed was kind of laughed at among his peers because he didn't try to cut costs and keep costs down. He let the perfumers spend as much as they wanted on the blend. And it shows in a scent like this. You get that ambergris in the base that really amps up the leather and that beautiful Creed sandalwood. If you like, what is it, Himalaya? I think it's Himalaya I'm thinking of that has that Creed sandalwood smell that I like. If you like Himalaya, but you want kind of a leathery, bright take on it with sandalwood and leather, this is not a complex fragrance. It's just orange, bergamot, ambergris, leather, sandalwood. That's it. But it's done very, very well. But when I bought this, I was expecting a leather, and this is not. I mean, it's a leather, but it's not a leather like Bel Ami or, you know, Tuscan Leather or something like that. You could wear this in the dead of summer. It's a Creed, but Royal English Leather, very hard to find. Do not pay big money for this, and it was not made in 1781. Okay, next is one of the prized possessions in my collection, and a couple reasons for that, but number one is the smell. I love this fragrance. I love Russian leathers. Cuir de Russie by Chanel. Oh, God. This is, if you know Cuir de Russie's take in the Les Exclusives, you know it's in the regular Les Exclusives bottle. It was originally issued as an EDT and then discontinued and put into the modern EDP. This is the 80s bottle from 1980s. Very, very, very hard to find this. And you can kind of see how they used to do things back then. But I sent a sample to Rich Mitch, who has the vintage EDT, but in the modern Les Exclusives, where you've got the magnetic cap or whatever it is. And he said that the florals are tuned down in this. There's not as much ylang-ylang. The animalic smell and the leather is amped up, which makes sense. It's an 80s. This was an 80s release, so it was competing with stuff like Antaeus. But it's got leather and birch tar, and it feels like, I've said this before, but it feels like, you know, Anastasia in Russia in a palace in the 1900s. She goes outside in her gown, beautiful jewelry, diamonds showing everywhere, and gets in a horse in a carriage, and they ride off, and you get that horse animalic type smell. But for somehow, which it's probably a mixture of the Chanel florals, and there's also an iris note in this too, by the way. This came out of the blue, this iris thing that hit me today. That inside of these leather fragrances, they have the iris that I love. Somehow, even with that animalic leather and birch and that, you know, horse stable type feel, somehow it's classy. I don't know how Ernst Beau did that trick in this creation, because it does feel like a trick. It feels like, how can something as classy as a Chanel feel dirty like this? It's even classier than Antaeus, I will tell you that. It is. It feels even classier. It feels posher. It feels more exclusive. So that's why this is such a gem in my collection. And then I'm going to show you guys a hidden gem. I've sung the praises of this to Rich Mitch already, so he knows what's coming. But this is the Leather Find of the year for me because it's new for me. But I found this within the last 6 months or so, and it blew me away. I loved every single second of wearing it. It's called Goma by Etro. And this is the vintage Eau de Cologne. So the reformulated version is the EDT. So you want the Eau de Cologne if you can find it. And the way to tell is, first of all, it's a bigger sticker, I believe. Also, I think the new one, they've cut some of the sticker out, so it's not a clean square here, but it says Eau de Cologne right there. It'll say EDT on the new stuff. The new stuff also looks much lighter. So even though this is an EDC, the juice is much darker. This really took me by surprise. These two get compared for some reason. And interestingly enough, I paid like 3 or 4 times as much for this as this. And I like this way, way better. The Creed is good in all high quality ingredients, but as far as under the radar leather gem, Etro Goma is just blew me away. Almost backup bottle worthy. If I didn't have so many perfumes, it's backup bottle worthy. It's basically just Artemisia, lemon, leather, jasmine, and amber, but it's done so well. Every time I would smell this when I was wearing it, I would just melt. It's gorgeous. Gorgeous. And then I'll just show you my favorite leather of all time, and that is Bel Ami. I'll show you 2 versions that I have, the vintage shaker bottle and the first reformulation, which I prefer. I actually prefer this one, and I know Enchante Perfumes used to have a couple of these laying around still. If you can get your hands on this for a good price, do it. The new stuff is not anywhere as good. In fact, I would venture to say that buy Bel Ami Vetiver. If you're gonna buy either a new bottle of Bel Ami or Bel Ami Vetiver, buy Bel Ami Vetiver over the new bottle of Bel Ami. But the vintage stuff, it just blows me away. It's so good. It's got this mossy feel to it, like a Chypre, which it is. It's a Chypre fragrance. But the use of oak moss in leather, and again, there's orris root in this. There's this iris note, cardamom in the top. I love the spices in the top. The cardamom adds this spiciness with bergamot and sage, and God, it's so good. The best leather fragrance for me. 11 out of 10. The only 11 out of 10 I would give to a leather here today. And then I'm going to show you guys a couple little treats that I set aside. One is a fragrance by Histoires de Parfum. They come in these little boxes like a book, and it's called 1740. And basically, this is an Immortelle leather. This is Marquis de Sade is what they call this one. But this is also a very under-the-radar scent. If you want a leather, that no one else is wearing for the most part, no one talks about this fragrance normally. One of the best fragrances from the house of Histoires de Parfum, 1740 Marc de Sade. I think you can get 60 mLs for like $100 on the discounters. Steal. This is a 15 ml bottle, which I love that they do these small little bottles, by the way. And then a couple other treats, and then I'll be done for the night. Number 1 is a fragrance by Clive Christian. Comes in this beautiful ostrich box. Ostrich box, me lord. It opens up like this, and you get this ridiculously expensive looking presentation. And this is C for men. If you like this, I would venture to say, if you like Tuscan leather, I would venture to say that you will love C for Men. It is Tuscan leather amped up with this animalic oud and tobacco. It lasts an age. Don't wear this in the heat, by the way. This is strictly cold weather, fancy stuff. But look at the dent. I put this dent in the bottle. I bought this bottle new. This is a 50 ml. And anyways, C for men. I usually don't hype up the House of Clive Christian because they are so ridiculously expensive. But this and X for men are probably the only two that I would recommend. The others, stay away. And then I mentioned that I have a fragrance that I like more than Roja's Fetish that does what it does even better to my nose, and that is Pure Distance M. So you can see it comes in this box, this sturdy box, so you can take it anywhere, and it's a magnetic box. So you open it up, and inside sits the fragrance along with some stuff that says how awesome they are. And this is basically supposed to smell like the inside of an Aston Martin, and they pegged it. I would much rather wear this over Roja's Fetish. Don't ask me why. I couldn't even tell you. This feels more Roja'd. This feels like they hit that leather inside of an Aston Martin feel better. Pure Distance M, expensive. I think this is a 60 ml. But if you like leathers, this is a must. Even if you get like a Discovery Atomizer, a 7.5 ml or something, try it. It is, it's beautiful, fantastic. And then the final treat is put out by one of the greatest perfumers of all time, Edmund Rudnitska. And if you know what's coming, you know. Let me show you the box first. This is Eau de Hermès, cumin and leather, done to perfection. Now, this is a vintage, and they're numbered flacons because this is Baccarat crystal, I believe. And you can see the Japanese writing. This came from Japan. And you can also see that on the bottom of the box, it lists the ingredients, which say, right there, alcohol, water, fragrance, which is exactly what you want your fragrances to say. And here, let me open this up for you guys. It's a little bit of a chore, so bear with me. And it's heavy. This is the heaviest bottle in my collection. It comes up, you know, it opens up like this, and you get this beautiful flacon, which looks like this with the Hermès, with the Hermès orange tie around it. And some people can tell by the actual symbol. The symbol on this is different from the symbol on modern Eau de Hermès. It's even different from the symbol on the gold cap version, which is what people say to look for because it's a vintage. This dates all the way back to the pewter cap era, I believe, which the pewter cap is apparently the best version of this, the closest version that Edmund Rudnitska created. And you can see the number on the flacon is etched into the glass right there to match the box. And you know, you've got your stuff here and here. But Eau de Hermès, if you can find a gold cap or if you can find a pewter cap version, this bottle is so heavy, by the way. Like, I feel like I'm getting a workout. Get it. Edmund Rudnitska's greatest work, in my opinion. I think this is his masterpiece from 1951. And one of my favorite leather fragrances of all time. So, the video has gone over an hour. I'm so glad you guys shared some time. Let me share my passion with you. This is not a top 10 because this was a top 30 or whatever it is from my collection, but you're now armed with the best leather fragrances. I left some out. Obviously, I didn't include some like Aramis by Aramis, Patel pour Homme. There's some others in there that I could have put that I marked on the sheet and didn't grab because it's just too much work gathering this all up for you guys. But I hope you appreciate it. All of these are purchased with my own money. I am not sponsored, by the way. So if I tell you I like something, I legitimately like it. So if you have any questions, comments, feedback, concerns, I like seeing everyone's face in the comments. Someone said I should say, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. I figure you guys are smart enough to know to do that on your own. And thanks a lot for letting me share and watching. And we'll see you guys with another video soon. Bye-bye.